Ladies, gentlemen, and Stoics, Andy here. I went from depressed and suicidal to living a life of abundance and joy. If I can do it, you sure as hell can too. One of the philosophies and the mindsets, and I guess you could say the school of thought, that has really helped me a lot over the last, like 10 years at this point, is Stoicism. And if you're not familiar with what Stoicism is, there were a group of philosophers and thinkers, people like Marcus Aurelius, people like Epictetus, Seneca, those kind of people who had a way of thinking and a way of looking at the world that basically involved them looking inwards and being self-aware and working on their own thoughts rather than trying to control or change the entire outside world, which is often just a losing game, right? You can't really control the rest of the world, but you can sort of choose your reactions to your own thoughts and external events and how you deal with things. And so I thought it would be fun to go through and read out some of my favorite Stoic quotes and kind of react to them and talk about how they have helped me in my journey to become Captain Stoicism, Captain Peaceful, Captain Happy. So this is from a website called mindofastoic.com, which has a whole bunch of quotes and a whole bunch of articles and stuff like this. And we will start with one of my favorites, Marcus Aurelius. This guy has an insane or lived an insane life. If you're not familiar with him, he was the emperor of Rome at the height of the Roman Empire. And so think about what it would be like to have that much power. And yet this guy was one of the most humble people that basically ever lived. And he kept a journal or a diary that people then collected after his death that he didn't intend anyone to ever see. So it was his own personal thoughts and journal and diary just for him. And people put it together in a book that's called Meditations. And so you can find this on YouTube. There's like audiobook versions. It's completely free. It's in the public domain. There are also versions on Amazon if you want to buy like a professional put together version. But his thoughts that he collected, not intending for anyone to ever read them, are sort of like my favorite go-to quotes, along with another guy that we'll come to in a second called Epictetus. But Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus were my two favorite people. And I think Marcus Aurelius has the coolest story because, again, think about all of that power. And a lot of his diary entries and his journal entries were about not having power over other people, not controlling other people, not losing touch with the common folk, being humble, all of that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, this was a guy that even with all of that power, even with all of that fame, even with all of that wealth and all of that sort of stuff, he still sometimes struggled to get out of bed in the morning. He wanted to lay in under the covers and be lazy and just stay under there where it's nice and warm. And a lot of his journal is him motivating himself and come on, be the best that you can be. So he's got a very interesting self-improvement journey and definitely a very interesting Stoic journey. So the first quote I love is the best answer to anger is silence. Yeah, I had a guy in my coaching group and he used to struggle with sending angry or butthurt texts to girls. And it was the end of a lot of casual relationships that he was in, right? He would get very frustrated that maybe she took a little while to respond to his messages or she didn't do what he wanted or something like that. He'd get very hurt. And as a defense mechanism, he would sort of lash out and be like, come on, I expect better. He wasn't mean, but he was like, come on, I expect better. You can't just not be replying to me. That's not good enough. And people would be like, whoa, what are you talking about? I was busy. And they would leave. And this kept happening. This pattern kept repeating itself. And so what I got him to do was I said, what if you just put a pause in there? What if you hit the pause button? And when you're feeling all of these emotions or you're having this knee-jerk reaction, what if you put the phone away and you have to pause for, at first we started with pause for 1 day and just sort of go away, don't reply, think about how you feel, and then reply. And when he was able to do that, 5 hours later, it didn't usually even take a day, 5 hours later, or maybe the next morning after he'd gotten some good sleep, he would wake up and he'd go, hey, I actually feel really good now. And he would text, the woman or the girl, and he'd be like, hey, that's cool. I don't mind that you took a while to reply, or I don't mind that you canceled on our date or that you wanted to reschedule or something. So, the best answer to anger is silence essentially typifies what he went through and what he learned to do, which is I'm going to hit that pause. I'm not going to say anything. It's like that saying that a lot of our mothers said to us, right? If you have nothing nice to say, Don't say anything at all. So silence or pausing, yeah, anger often dissipates, especially if you have tools to work through it, like, Byron Katie's The Work and some of the philosophies and mindsets that I talk about. But if you can't say anything nice, just don't say anything. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. Yeah, that reminds me of the saying from the Bible, or the quote from the Bible. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I like this one because this one's just a fun, saying how ridiculous and how strange to be surprised at anything which happens in life. And it reminds me of a quote or an idea that came into our heads when we were on our last group coaching call in my coaching program, where I said, if you just expect reality, then you can never be disappointed. And that's essentially what this quote here is. It's saying, like, why would you ever get surprised at whatever happens in life? Like, life is this insane cosmic joke. It's this beautiful, wonderful play, this theatrical play that we're all involved in. It's some sort of hysterical, comedy. Like, life is insane. The fact that we're even alive, the fact that we have gravity, the fact that the sun shines, the fact that we're just in this circle, like revolving around the sun, which is revolving around, as far as we can tell, a big black hole in the center of our galaxy. Life is already fucking weird and insane. And you really think it's that strange that somebody didn't reply to your text messages, or somebody said no to you, or a car cut you off in traffic, or a dog tried to bite you? Like, why be surprised at anything? And again, if you don't have any expectations, you're never really going to be surprised or disappointed. Another way of phrasing that is, if you expect life to do whatever the fuck life is going to do, which is another way of saying don't have any expectations, then it's just this beautiful, peaceful existence that you get to go through. But the frustration in life comes when we're having an expectation and then reality doesn't match up with that. Because again, reality is going to do whatever the fuck reality wants to do. But if we have an expectation and it doesn't go according to plans, we get disappointed, we get surprised, we get angry, we get frustrated. And it's like, you just had a silly expectation. You had a naive expectation. You had a fairy tale in your head of how life was supposed to go, or how this event was supposed to go, or how this person was supposed to talk to you or treat you or whatever. And it didn't match up with reality. And then you got a little frustrated and surprised. But if you're just not ever expecting things, as this quote says, you realize the ridiculousness of trying to predict the future and trying to control the future. The first one, or the second quote here, if you can just like not try to control everything. This one, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This is basically his most famous quote, and I think it's the most pertinent one. And I think this is essentially the heart of, or one of the hearts of, I'll just say the heart of Stoicism, which is essentially realize that your mind, as far as, things that you can, I don't like the word control, but your mind is the one thing that you can control. I'm going to use that word. It's a little clumsy, but I think it works. Your mind is the only thing that you have actual control over, or in his case, he says power. You can't really control outside events. You can to some extent. You can use force and you can use manipulation and you can try really hard. But at the end of the day, again, reality is going to do whatever the fuck reality wants to do. Reality doesn't really give a shit about your opinion. It just doesn't. It doesn't give a fuck about my opinion. It might on tiny little matters, and other people might give a fuck about your opinion on small, tiny little matters. But for the most part, other people are going to do whatever the hell they want, whatever they believe to be the good in that moment, whatever they're believing to be the best thing that they can do in that moment. Everybody's just trying to do their best in that moment. And reality is just doing whatever the hell reality wants. Byron Katie, who we're going to come to in a minute because she's another one of my favorite Stoics, Byron Katie has a really great saying where she's like, who needs God when we have your opinion? And when you sit there and go, I'm going to control other people, I'm going to control reality, I'm going to fucking shape the world into my image and what I want, it's like I just want to play God for a little bit. God or the universe or life or reality doesn't really give a shit what you think is correct. And a lot of the time, we're trying to exert control or force over the outside world or over other people. And sometimes it appears as if that worked, or sometimes it works short term. And then we'll say, I did that. And it's like, no, the other person, in the example of you controlling someone else, you might say, I do have power over outside events and outside people. If I'm a boss in a company, I can force my employees to do what I want. I do have control over them. And what you will do is you will use force, manipulation, yelling, whatever you have to do, persuasion, whatever you feel like you need to do. And you will change some of their minds, but they consented to that. So some of them will do what you're asking them to do. But at any moment in time, they could say, fuck off, boss, I don't like this anymore, and I'm going to leave. And if you use enough force, if you use a lot of force, people will leave. They will run away from you because they don't like to be forced. And so it appears as if you have power over other things, and you do on tiny little things, but that is with the full consent of the other person. At any point, you listening to this right now, you could just stop watching my channel forever. And so I have power over you while you consent. It's not even power over you, but I can control you, or it might appear as if I'm controlling you. I'm really not, but it might look like I'm controlling you as long as you stay here. But the second you decide to walk away, I no longer have any fucking control over you. So it appears on the surface as if we have control over external events and outside people and all of that. But at any point, that power or that control can be withdrawn. And so it's sort of like power or control with consent. You know what I mean? It's like a BDSM relationship or a kink relationship, a dom-sub relationship. If you're the dominant, yeah, sure, you might have power over the sub. But at any point in time, they can say, no, thank you, I don't want this, or I want to stop, or here's my safe word, or I'm leaving, or hey, I'm breaking up with you, or no, thank you, I've had enough, goodbye. And you can't do anything at that point. So power over others and over outside events is always with consent, but the power you have over your mind, or I would say the power you have to work with your mind and, choose what you do with your own thoughts and your own feelings and all of that, that you always have power over. The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. I like this one. I wouldn't even talk in terms of enemies and revenge and any of that, but I think this is a good starting point. If you're someone that gets caught up in revenge all the time, it's like that other saying. I don't know who said the other saying, but the best revenge is a life well lived. I think that might actually be a Buddhism quote. That might be a Buddhism quote. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but that's another saying. But I wouldn't even use terms like revenge and enemy and stuff like that. But I think you guys and girls get the point. Confine yourself to the present. I really like this one. This is another way of saying live in the moment. The past is already over and the future hasn't happened yet. And the future never really goes according to the way you think it's going to anyway. 9 times out of 10, the future is different to what you predicted. So the future is just a made up fantasy that probably won't come to fruition the way that you think it will. Past is already done. And we retroactively rewrite the past anyway. So the past is false, if anything, most of the time. The past is a story. We tell a story of what the past was like. So all there really is right now, this moment, the present. So you kind of don't really even have a choice in this one. Although I guess there is a choice because lots of people spend time regretting the past. How many of you right now, I'll say this in a gentle way, but I'll personally call you out. How many of you, gently speaking, are in your late 20s or mid 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or whatever, and you go, man, I wasted my 20s, and you're not taking action because you're confining yourself to the past. You're obsessing about the past. Oh man, I missed out on the college experience, or I was a late bloomer, or I'm a virgin, and so I've wasted all of the time in the past. To some extent, there is a degree of just sticking that aside and going, okay, fine, I will fucking just deal with that later. Let me just live in the moment right now. A mindset that I give to some people when they're struggling to let go of the past is, okay, if you feel like you wasted the past, right? If you feel like you've wasted all these years or months or decades or whatever, you're going to sit here and keep wasting the present. Every day you wake up regretting the past is you just adding more to that pile of time, quote, wasted. Why not actually take some damn action right now and not waste the future as well, or the present as well? I like this one a lot. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. I really like that one a lot. I like number 10. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. I literally just this morning sent someone a podcast it was a podcast I did a while ago called Stop Talking About What You Will Do and Talk About What You Have Done. That's essentially this. It's like, don't sit there going like, what is a good man? Should I be a good man? I'm going to be a good man. And this applies to women too, by the way, obviously. I'm going to be a good human being. What does that involve? I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to do this in the future. I'm going to do this. I'm going to set a New Year's resolution. I'm going to do this. No, just like actually take some action. It's why my big philosophies are give yourself permission to suck and then just take some little baby steps. One tiny, tiny, tiny little baby step. If you want to lose weight, research one gym in your area. That's one tiny little baby step that you can take. If you're a guy and you want to start working on your sex life or your dating life, just go outside and look at 3 women today and try and smile at them. Just take some sort of baby step. Don't sit there coming up with the perfect plan or debating, how many people on the internet right now, this might even apply to you listening, but how many people on the internet right now go on different channels and sit there and argue and say, this person is correct, this guru is correct, no, this guy giving advice is correct, well, I like this guy better. Why are you arguing about like who's correct? Take some action. And when you take action, and when you get a little further in your self-development or your self-improvement or whatever you want to call this, your self-love, you find that multiple people can be right. There isn't a duality. It's not binary. It's not like this guy's correct and this guy is wrong. You realize that almost all of it works, pretty much all works, and it's just about taking that action rather than debating or arguing about what a good man should be or a correct advice is. Each day provides its own gifts. That's a lovely little piece of gratitude. Give yourself a gift, the present moment, another nice little bit of gratitude. I like this one. This ties nicely into something that Alex Hormozi says. So Alex Hormozi is a entrepreneur, businessman, and he says when we all get taxed 100% at death. Like when we die, we get taxed 100%. So the same thing. The only wealth that you'll keep forever is the wealth you've given away. Because then it gives you a beautiful, precious gift of gratitude and, good vibes and all of that kind of stuff. So you can hang on to your money preciously if you want to, but you will be taxed when you die. All of it will be gone. This was just a nice little gratitude. A lot of his journal or his diaries was gratitude. So this was at a moment where he was lying under the blankets and they were nice and warm. And I really love this gratitude. Hey, have I been made for this? To lie under the blankets and keep myself warm. I like this one, and this has very much embodied my own content over the last 4 or 5 years, on my blog, on YouTube, on Spotify. He says, conceal a flaw and the world will imagine the worst. Yeah, there's strength in just being vulnerable. Vulnerability is armor. Honesty is armor. And just getting it out there and saying, look, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress. Give yourself permission to suck. That's what that philosophy is for. Give yourself permission to suck. If you feel like it, admit to other people that you suck. And it's not about a value judgment of I suck, I'm so terrible. But it's hey, I'm a beautiful work in progress. I'm a human being, right? I like this one. Life is neither good or evil, but is only a place for good and evil. Eventually, you might get to a point where you realize that, even good and evil are just labels that we put on stuff. But this is a really beautiful starting place. I really like that one. I fucking love this one too. I cannot escape death, but at least I can escape the fear of it. Yeah, it's like the Winston Churchill quote, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. The fear of death is far worse than actual death, because what is death? Well, first of all, I can't say I know what death is, but as far as I can tell, death is going to sleep. Death is a lack of life. Even that's a fucking story, but that's as far as what I can tell so far. But the fear of it, people will live their entire lives in fear of death. I used to. The vast majority of my life, everything I did was to escape death, was to buffer against it. I have to accumulate a lot of money so that I don't die and, become homeless and die. I have to have a lot of sex so that I don't die a social death. I have to make people think that I'm cool and get validation so I don't feel all alone, which feels like a death. And so almost everything that I'm just going to say 99% of humans, everything they do is a fear of death. And it's that freaking fear that binds you and stops you from living your true self, from climbing up and from really opening up and going for things without this fucking fear of what if I get rejected? You know, a lot of you listening right now, your biggest fear, a lot of you men, but women too, God, but a lot of you men right now, your biggest fear is, but what if I get rejected? What if you get rejected? What are you talking? That's like the worst thing that can happen to you. What if I get rejected? Well, a woman says no to you, but understand that that comes from a fear of death. It comes from like if you play it to its logical conclusion, so you can ask yourself, you know, I'm afraid of rejection. What am I so afraid of? What bad thing happens next after I get rejected? What am I so fucking afraid of? And you'll say, well, I'm afraid that, you know, it hurts and I'm embarrassed and I run home and I cry. And then what? Well, then I wouldn't have the courage to go and do more approaches, and it would just keep happening if I did, and they would keep rejecting me, and I'd keep feeling shit, and I'd quit, and I'd be all alone, and then what? And if you keep asking yourself, and then what, as in, what am I actually afraid of? Every single person that I've ever done this with eventually gets to a point where they're like, and then I guess I'd just be alone for the rest of my life. And then what? Well, and then I'd die alone. Boom. There you go. That's what you're fucking afraid of. You're afraid of dying alone. You're not afraid of rejection. Rejection is just a woman saying, no, thank you. I have a boyfriend. No, thank you. I'm not interested. That's nothing. That's like some words falling out of one human being's mouth. It's one human being telling you their preference, but that fear of rejection comes from a fear of death. So I say, and this comes from David Hawkins. David Hawkins says, I say just embrace that fear of death. Deal with it. Get that all cleaned up. You know, get that all sorted right now. Really look towards your death, and you can do that with psychedelics. But I would be very careful if you do that, by the way. I'm not condoning you just go out and take fucking LSD or something without knowing what the hell you're doing. But, you know, you can do it through psychedelics. You can do it through just facing death. You can do it through saying like, what bad thing happens if I die? But it really is just like making peace and eventually learning to love death, or at least just making peace with it. And then you're actually freed up to live. I like this one. Settle on the type of person you want to be and stick to it, whether alone or in company. Yeah, that's just about having principles and having a sense of direction as to who you are. That's a big part of Stoicism as well, but that's something that you can learn and evolve yourself. You don't have to know who you are right now. It's something that can develop. You know, I didn't just wake up one day and go, I know the type of person I want to be. It's something that's moldable, shapeable, and, you know, you improve it over time, but be patient with this. But yeah, this is just basically about being about, or this quote is about like self-esteem, essentially. Same as this one, the same thing. Consider at what price you sell your integrity, but please, for God's sake, don't sell it cheap. Yeah. We have a word for that, don't we? Like sell out. Seneca, another one of my favorites. I like Seneca. I like Seneca a lot. I especially like this one. This is his most famous one, I think. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Yeah, Byron Katie, who again we're going to come to in a minute, has a very similar quote, which is reality is often much kinder than our stories about it. And so we often, do sit there and go, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. You know, my boss is going to be so mad at me. It's going to be awful. I'm going to be homeless. Oh my God, like, I don't know what's going to happen. That's that fear of death kicking in. And then you lose your job. 2 weeks later, you're in a better job with better pay, better people, you're happier, and you go, oh shit, what the fuck? This is amazing. And even if you're not in a new job, you don't end up homeless and fucking die. That almost never happens. The worst case scenario that we can imagine in our head, think about how many times in your head you have a worst case scenario or a big fear. How often does that come true? Like 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, which means like 99% of the time, reality is kinder than your imagination. And even when you do, you know, the thing that you didn't want to happen happens, that is almost, I'm just going to say always, but I know that some of you might not believe that, but it's always a gift. There is always some fucking silver lining there if we're willing to look for it, or we can not look for it. You know, it's completely up to us. I talk about these concepts a hell of a lot in my video course, you know, the Play to Win video course, probably this chapter more than anything. So this chapter is called Everything is a Story, and you're in control of the stories that you tell. This entire thing, I even have quotes from Stoics in this, but this entire chapter is about how to see everything that happens as good. I have a similar chapter as well called Everything That Happens to Me is Good. My entire video course, by the way, is essentially Stoicism. So like all of the stuff that I'm reading out, a hell of a lot of it is in the video course. Especially in this chapter, actually. Failures, setbacks, and stress, how to become resilient. This entire chapter is about like Stoicism. Actually, I think the entire, like I said, video course is about Stoicism. But yeah, I love Seneca, in case you couldn't tell. I love all these guys. I want to give these guys a big kiss on the forehead and be like, thank you. Ignorance is the cause of fear. Yeah, my God, these guys are stealing from me. They're not really. I'm joking. But anyway, in my video course, I literally talk about this concept. I say, like, no matter how a certain fear might be presenting itself, it's almost always a fear of the unknown or a fear of death, but they're pretty much the same thing, which they are, yeah. So what if we made the fear a little bit more known? And so I talk about in this, you can pause the screen and read this if you want to, or just buy the video course. You can pay whatever you want for the video course, even if that's just $1. But pause the screen if you want, read this. Look, I even have that Seneca quote. Yeah, see, I knew I had some quotes in here. But I talk about like how to make a fear of the, what I call a fear of the known. You're making it a little bit less unknown. So you literally like research it, you play it out to its logical conclusion. Like I said before, I have a whole bunch of strategies in here of like how to make your fears a little bit more known. But yeah, ignorance really is the cause of fear. Buddhism has a very similar quote, which is all suffering is from ignorance. And when they say ignorance, what they mean is, I like to use the word lack of understanding, because I think ignorance has a very strong connotation. People are like, oh, you're calling me ignorant. No. It's about a lack of understanding. We only ever suffer from something if we don't really understand it. Like, let's say you're a guy or a girl and people that you've been texting and you're excited to go on a date, they just suddenly stop replying, right? You might get very frustrated. You might take it personally and get hurt. You might feel all sorts of ways and you're feeling suffering. But if I was to come along, or the person was to come along and reply to you like, a couple of days later and say, look, I'm really sorry. My mother literally died the day when when we were going to meet. And that's why I stopped replying. And I'm really sorry about that. Like I was just I'm still trying to get through it. My mother literally just fucking died and we were so close. She's been my rock. I'm sorry I didn't text you. I'm sorry I didn't meet with you. Are you still suffering in that moment? Or are you just like, whoa, I didn't know that? That's what people say after they say, oh, I didn't know that. And all of the suffering disappears because you didn't know and now you do know. And it's impossible for you to suffer now. I mean, I guess you could still suffer if you were very angry or something, but you're probably not going to suffer, right? Because you now have some knowledge. So ignorance is, as Buddhism says, the cause of all suffering. Byron Katie says something similar. She says all suffering is due to confusion. I like to say all suffering is due to a lack of understanding. We're all saying basically the same thing. Seneca here saying ignorance is the cause of fear. It's the cause of suffering. So yeah. This one here is a nice little action, little motivation. While we wait for life, life passes. Yeah, there's another quote. It might show up in this list here today. It probably will. It goes something like this, and I can't remember who said it, but one of the Stoics. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? And that's one of the quotes that I've said when I'm pushing people to sign up or encouraging you guys to sign up for coaching. I'm like, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? There'll be some of you right now that have been thinking about coaching. In fact, there's a guy that literally wrote a comment this morning saying, hey, Andy, I've been thinking of signing up for coaching. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself? So I really like these quotes. Like, while we wait for life, life passes. Yeah, and it's why I focus on just, look, give yourself permission to suck. Take a baby step right now. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have the perfect plan. Don't wait until life or the time is perfect. The time will never be perfect. There's that beautiful Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is right now. So don't wait for life. Life passes. Life is long if you know how to use it. Yeah. Oh my God. I really feel like this. I've felt like this more and more over the last year. I've had so many moments where I'm just like, holy shit. I can't believe how beautiful and how long one day is. Think about all of the things that I can do in one day. How much good I can do for myself, for the people around me, how beautiful life is, how many moments of gratitude I can have in just a single minute, let alone a single hour, let alone a whole day. And I get I don't know when I'm going to die, do I? But oh my God, I'm only 36 and I have all of the rest of my life to enjoy it. So yeah, I really like this one. This one really resonates. Number 5 is very similar to the, number 3, hurry up and live. Cease to hope and you will cease to fear. I like this one. That's very similar. I think hope can be a beautiful thing, but hope can also be a procrastination. Hope can also be a form of, passive, just I guess being passive. Hope can be you sort of going, I'll just hope that someone else will fix it. I'll hope that it will just solve itself. And sometimes it does, But I think this one is a push for taking some sort of action right now. Very similar. While we are postponing, life speeds by. Very similar to the one before. Life, if well lived, is long enough. I really like this one. I like this one so much. You know how so many people go like, I miss my childhood. So this one here, hang on to your youthful enthusiasms. You will be able to use them better when you are older. How many people go, I miss my childhood. I miss being young. It's like, there's no rule book that says when you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s that you can't have youthfulness, that you can't be fun, that you can't enjoy life, that you can't get out there and do something. An example of this is Imogen and I have gone to this trampolining park and we've taken a few girls there. And if you don't know what a trampolining park is, it's basically an entire place where the floor is made of trampolines and there's like giant trampolines and there's ball pits and all sorts of like cool stuff, right? And I absolutely love going to these things. They're absolutely like so much goddamn fun. And we've taken girls to them and oh my God, it is such a workout. Like you're freaking dead halfway through. And I can do like one or two tricks and some of the instructors there will just like teach you tricks and it's so much freaking fun. And so we love going to these things. And every time we go, there will be like so we often go for like the whole day. Like we'll just buy a day pass and we'll be in there for like 4 or 5 hours. We'll take a break, we'll have lunch and we'll just stay there. In that entire day, there will be maybe one adult that will go on the trampolines. And there's like an entire section where all of the adults go and sit. And there'll be some teenagers going out here, but mostly kids. And then there's me and Imogen and, like a girl that we might take or just Imogen and I. And all the adults are just sitting over there, being adults, just like looking on their phones and kind of paying half attention to the kids. And every now and then you will see one adult that goes, fuck it, I'm going to give this a go. And they have so much fun. And all of the other adults, you can see, they will start, and because sometimes we sit next to, like in the cafe where all the adults are, sometimes they'll be like, oh, should we go out there? And they'll be like, oh, ha, 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 like we could, ha, 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 should we? And you're just like, go on, like, go, like, come on, it's so much fun, like, go. And they just, I don't have the right shoes. And it's like, you don't need shoes. You literally do this without shoes. Or I'm just not dressed very well. It's like, bro, I go to these things sometimes in jeans. Like we just happened to be driving past and I'm like, fuck it, let's go to this trampoline park. I'm wearing just like jeans and bling and like not equipped for the trampolining park, but fuck it, it's fun. And so I see this so often, to bring it back to this quote. I think there are so many older people, and really it's not even old. It's like you get to your mid-20s or your 30s and you think you're suddenly too old for things. I mean, how many of you do this with dating? You're like, I'm in my late 20s or my 30s. I couldn't date any woman in her 20s now because I'm too old. And it's like, that's just a bullshit rule that you put on yourself. It's the same nonsense of like, well, I'm 30 or 40, so I can't play in a trampoline park, or I can't go and play catch with my son because, I'm too old, or I can't go and swim in the beach because I'm too old. It's like, you just made some rule up. If you don't want to do it, just be honest and say, I don't want to do it. Just say that. But I think people have this rule book in their head, this made up false lie of like, I can't be youthful when I'm older. And so I really love this gentle reminder to, that you're allowed to. It's more a permission to be as youthful as you want to, no matter what your age is. He who is brave is free. I love that one. It is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness. It certainly can be. I'll say it's like, you don't have to suffer, in order to reach your goals, especially those of you who have big goals. And a big part of my philosophy and my content and definitely my coaching is that you don't have to suffer. But I understand what he's saying. It's like, it's certainly an unbeaten path a lot of the time. Like you're certainly not, if you're going for big goals, then you're certainly not living life according to the average person's blueprint. You're not playing it safe. I'll say it like that. I like this one. For many men and women as well, for many people, the acquisition of wealth does not end their troubles. It only changes them. I can say the same thing about goals as well. Like if you're achieving goals literally because you think that will just solve all of your problems and make you happy, you're kind of missing the point. and you'll just likely do what is called moving the goalpost, which is where you achieve a goal and you go, fuck, why did this not just like solve every problem in my life? Fuck, now I got to move the goalpost, and that didn't count as a goal. The goalposts are over there now, and you'll then run towards the next goal and go, oh fuck, that didn't make me happy either. And you'll just sort of keep doing that. And that's not a bad thing. That can be a beautiful thing. I sort of went through that in the early days, because then you'll eventually figure out, shit, goals themselves aren't making me happy. What would make me happy? And there are many answers to that question, but essentially it all boils down to be present and enjoy the present moment. In other words, be happy while you work on your goals. Don't tell yourself a lie that achieving a goal will just suddenly bring you happiness. Happiness can be sort of something that you cultivate or practice or learn how to tap into, learn how to appreciate. Gratitude, mindfulness, all of that kind of stuff. But happiness is sort of like a nice little habit that you build along the way as you work towards your goals. I talk about this shit a hell of a lot in the video course, especially in this chapter. I have an entire chapter, literally an entire chapter, on how to not move the goalposts, on how to be grateful, how to enjoy the present moment, how to achieve goals while being happy, so that when you get to your goal, you're like, fuck, man, this is so sweet. This is so exciting. I can't believe this happened. I'm so grateful to other people who helped me get here. I'm grateful to the universe. I'm grateful for this gift called life. Man, I'm so glad I achieved this goal. Oh my God, my life is I'm so blessed. I'm living a charmed life. Okay, what goal do I want to work on next? And you have this like beautiful excitement rather than this feeling of like, fuck, why am I not happy? A lot of people, in other words, are paying the price of happiness now because they think that'll, like, they're putting down a deposit of happiness. They're sacrificing their happiness in the short term, thinking that that will get them like happiness when they reach their goal. And it's like, it's beautiful to push and put effort in and, kick ass in the short term. But like, you're allowed to be happy while you do that. Don't sacrifice happiness. You're basically paying the price of happiness. You're saying, let me give up some happiness in order to reach a goal that I hope will make me happy. All you've really taught yourself there is, okay, so happiness is something that I can just give up. If happiness is important to you, be happy the entire time. And you take more action when you're happy. It's far easier to work on your goals and take big action and kick some ass when you're freaking happy and when you're freaking enjoying it. And then this last one is very similar to the Marcus Aurelius quote. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Like I said with my coaching client, I was like, put a pause in there. Just pause. Pause before you text these women and see how you feel. All right, let's move on to my boy Epictetus. This guy was an absolute legend. He was a fucking slave, and then he became like a teacher, and one of his students, I believe, one of his students was the ones that like published too. I actually like the discourses probably the most, but the other one's good as well. I really like the discourses. You can find this shit on YouTube, by the way. It's all free. Basically everything that these people did is free on YouTube. So there's like the discourses of Epictetus. I believe there's 4 of them, and they're really interesting. I really love this one. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. I take that as a very similar quote to something that David Hawkins, another one of my favorite authors, says, and Byron Katie, where they both say, be humble, be in the position of student rather than the position of teacher. And so if you can be open-minded and learn and say, hey, I might be wrong, and not have a positionality as in I'm right and everyone else is wrong, if you can be open to multiple viewpoints and listen, then man, you learn like 1,000 times faster than anybody else. It's why you'll hear me say things, and I've cultivated this in myself. It's why you'll hear me say things like, I'm not correct. I'm just some bald guy on the internet telling you what has worked for me. But try my advice, try somebody else's advice, see what works for you. Mix and match a little bit. Try a little bit of them, try a little bit of me. Do whatever you want at the end of the day. It's why I start with questions of like, what do you want? So then I can listen to you rather than speak. This next one is very similar to a lot of Stoic philosophy. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them. Yeah, so that is very similar to in my video course, the chapter, everything is a story and you're in control of the stories you tell. And in this chapter, I literally talk about how to take a happier or more peaceful view of things, just like this, quote here is talk about, rather than getting bogged down and unhappy and frustrated by everything that happens to you. Number 5 is very similar to that Bible quote that I said before. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That is literally this. So it's like, if something can be changed, then frickin' change it. I talk about this in the chapter, which one is it? In the chapter, Every Problem Has a Solution. So this entire chapter is about like how to find solutions to your problems. But there is a section where I literally say, sometimes I have found that the solution to a problem is accepting reality or accepting the current situation as it is and not arguing with it or wishing it was different. And then I go on to clarify this is not the same as giving up. It's accepting with grace that some things are the way that they are. And then I spend my energy and my time on the things that I can improve. In other words, knowing where to spend my time, which is essentially what this Stoic quote is. So as an example, let's say a woman doesn't want to date me. I could keep arguing with that and get frustrated and say, why won't she give me a chance? This is unfair. Or I could accept that this woman isn't interested in me, and I move on and I go and talk to the next woman. So I'm still taking action, but I'm accepting, as this Stoic quote says, I'm accepting, or I'm taking the rest as it happens. And I'm going, okay, look, I do have control, or I do have power, I guess, over how many women that I go and talk to. And if a woman isn't interested in me, that's beautiful. I'll go and talk to the next woman. That is 100% in my control. But I can't control each individual woman. Like, we can't control other people. She's free to say yes or no. And why would I want to control her anyway? That is the losing game anyway. That leads to deep unhappiness in yourself. It's not particularly nice. It doesn't feel very good to go through life controlling other people. This last one I really like. If you want something good, get it yourself. That's very similar to one of the previous quotes of like, don't sit there hoping that things will just come to you. Like, take a little bit of action. Take some baby steps and start working towards it. The rest of the Stoics, like Zeno, and I think they also have Musionis, I don't really resonate that much with them. Like a little bit. I think there was a couple actually. Okay, yeah, I did like the first one. So this is from Musionis. I'm probably mispronouncing that. We begin to lose our hesitation to do immoral things when we lose our hesitation to speak of them. In other words, what you focus on is what you manifest in your own life. So if you sit around like frustrated and feeling fear and anger and grief, and you really go and watch a bunch of content that's negative and makes you feel not that good, you're sort of familiarizing yourself with that world. If you watch a bunch of drama channels, for instance, on YouTube, or you watch a bunch of like negative content where everybody's harassing each other in drama and being mean to each other and all that kind of stuff, you make it more likely, or you sort of lose a little bit of your hesitation to do that stuff yourself, because you're familiarizing it with yourself. You're focusing on the thing that you don't want. It's why I switch off the news. It's why I don't go on social media. Or if I do, YouTube is my social media that I go on, I guess you could say. I watch only positive shit. I'm not interested in negative shit. And I familiarize myself with the positive so that then I'm more likely to do positive. It's like that similar saying. Was it Carl Jung? I can't remember. But if we stare into the abyss, eventually the abyss stares back. In other words, if you just focus on nothing but negativity, it makes it more likely for you to do negativity, because your brain, first of all, is more familiar with that because you've been watching it and indulging in it and talking about it and thinking about it. But second of all, you get that little voice in the back of your head that goes, it's not a bad thing if I fuck someone else over, because I'm watching all these other people do it. They're all doing it. So is it really that bad if I do it? And it's not about good or bad. Like, it's bad to fuck someone over. But at the end of the day, ask yourself how you feel when you act that way. And I'm always going to be an advocate of you guys and girls doing what makes you feel good, like what you want to do. And I don't think most people want to engage in drama or suffering or anger or pain because they complain about it. But you're not going to find someone complaining about peace. Find me a Buddhist monk that complains that he's feeling happy all the time. He's like, I'm just watching so much happy content and I'm reading happy books and my thoughts are so peaceful and, my life is just so amazing. Man, I'm sick of it. I fucking hate this. I hate being happy. Said no one ever. So yeah, the proof is in the pudding there, isn't it? So that's all the quotes from that website. Again, mindofastoic.com. And they have plenty of other stuff on there. So big shout out to that website. And then here's my favorite little Stoic, Byron Katie. So if you're not familiar, Byron Katie wrote a couple of books, a bunch of books, Loving What Is and I Need Your Love. Is That True? Two of my favorite books, honestly. And her philosophies and her mindset have been absolutely life-changing for me and plenty of clients that I've given her to. And you really can put her in the label or in the box of Stoic, amongst other things. She's like an old grandmother. She's a sweet old grandmother. Like, look at this. Look at this sweet old grandmother. She's so adorable. Look how adorable she is. Look at that. But she's like a badass Stoic. Like, her quotes are straight up like Epictetus and all of that kind of stuff. So I really love Byron Katie. It's not your job to like me. It's mine. I fucking love that. I think that comes from I Need Your Love, Is That True? Which is a really good book on abundance mentality, outcome independence, not caring about rejection. Like, I would just, if I could, if you're a guy and you're into sex and dating and all of that kind of stuff, maybe you're into like pickup artists and stuff like that. The best pickup artist book that I could ever give you is Byron Katie's book, I Need Your Love, Is That True? And for any women listening, this is just the best relationship book of all time. For anyone in a marriage, this is the best marriage book. For friendships, just for business. I honestly, if I was to write a list of like 10 books that I recommend every human being on earth read, and, not everyone's going to read the damn books, but if I was to write that list, I Need Your Love, Is That True? Would be on that list. So would her other book, Loving What Is. I really love this quote. Life is simple. Everything happens for you, not to you. Everything happens exactly at the right moment, neither too soon nor too late. You don't have to like it. It's just easier if you do. That's a nice way of saying something that some of the other, like Marcus Aurelius said, which is essentially, why would you ever be surprised at anything in life? This quote is her saying, life and reality is going to do whatever the hell it wants to do. You don't have to like it. You're allowed to bitch and moan about reality. And in fact, most people do. That car cut me off in traffic. They shouldn't have done that. The government shouldn't have done this. I used to be one of those people complaining about the government all the time. This woman should have texted me back. This guy should be kinder to me. My husband should talk more to me. You're allowed to argue with it, but it's easier if you go along with reality. It's easier if you accept reality. And that's a very Stoic philosophy. It's also a very Buddhist philosophy. A lot of Buddhism is very Stoic as well. Same sort of thing. Buddhism is essentially outcome independence and abundance mentality. If you want me to sum up Buddhism in one sentence, it's that. Buddhism is outcome independence and abundance mentality. The whole philosophy of Buddhism is non-attachment, which is another word for outcome independence. You're not attached to the outcome. You're not attached to anything, really. This one is very much the same as Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. As long as you think that the cause of your problem is out there, as long as you think that anyone or anything is responsible for your suffering, the situation is hopeless. It means that you're forever in the role of victim and that you're suffering in paradise. I fucking love that. We all do live in paradise. Life is a fucking gift. But if you put yourself in that victim role because you believe that your boss is fucking you over, or this girl that didn't reply is fucking me over, or this guy that's not paying me attention is fucking me over, you put yourself in that role of victim, and then you're missing all the beauty in the world, all of the gifts, and that is your right to do so. As she says, you don't have to like it. You don't have to like this paradise that we live in, but it's just a little bit easier if you do. And again, I don't think most people want to suffer. I've never met anyone who's like, yeah, I'm suffering like hell. I fucking love it. Now, people suffer for a reason. They're getting something out of it. You're getting victimhood. You're getting sympathy. You're getting to not have to take action. You're getting procrastination, complacency, all of those things. You're definitely getting something out of complaining. But people complain and wish that they didn't have to complain. And that is where Stoicism can come in and really help. A thought is harmless unless we believe it. It's not our thoughts, but our attachment to our thoughts that causes suffering. Attaching to a thought means believing that that thought is true without inquiring. I phrase that checking. Like you'll have a thought in your head and your brain will go like, oh man, like my boss is fucking me over. This is so unfair. I like to say, hey, let's check. Is that actually true? Like, is your boss fucking you over? Or is your boss just doing what your boss is doing, and then you're telling a story that your boss is against you and everyone's fighting me and I'm a victim and it's not fair? Like, are you just sort of telling a story? Are you believing your own thought? Can we reframe it in a different way? And that's literally what my video course is there to do. I talk about like how to reframe these things. Again, my video course is essentially Stoicism, but you get in there, you see if there's a different way you can look at things, maybe a different side to a story, a kind of story that you could tell that empowers you a little bit more. I like to tell the stories that empower me rather than the ones that put me in that victim mindset, because when I'm a victim, Victims are powerless. That is the role of a victim. That is literally what the word victim means. Somebody to whom something has happened and they don't have a choice in the matter. That's hopeless. That's unfair. There's nothing you can do about that. So I tell the stories that put me in the role of, hey, I am the leader. I am the driver. I'm driving the car. I'm in control to some extent. I'm in control over myself at least, and control over my actions. And I am not going to be a victim. I refuse to be a victim. I haven't been a victim for fucking years, but you get what I mean. So a belief is a thought that we've been attaching to often for years. And so Byron Katie is brilliant at walking you through how to let go of your victim status and your limiting beliefs. My video course is good for that. Buddhism is very good for that. That is Buddhism. Buddhism is literally like Byron Katie talks about attaching to our thoughts. Buddhism is like how to let go of that attachment to your thoughts, non-attachment. How to just check and see if your stories are actually true, or if there's a different way we can reframe things and look at them through a different lens that empowers us a little bit more. This is one of my favorite quotes of hers. I am a lover of what is. And when she says what is, she means like reality. I'm a lover of what is, not because I'm a spiritual person, but because it hurts when I argue with reality. Yeah. It's like, the Seneca, or was it Epictetus? Seneca. Epictetus. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. When you argue with reality, when you say this person should be different, this woman should reply to me, this guy should be nice to me, my boss should respect me. It's like, that fucking hurts. It really fucking hurts. How many of you are suffering right now because you're arguing with reality? It hurts. And there's often nothing you can do, especially not when you're feeling like a victim. That's why, with my content, my coaching and everything, I'm gently pushing you out of the role of victim and saying, okay, what action can we do today? It's why if you ever see anyone complain or leave a comment where they're in the status of victim, they're like, it's too late for me. I'm short and I'm old and no person would ever date me and it's so unfair. I jump in and I say, hey, what can we do? What action can we take right now? What's one little baby step that you can take? Or sometimes I say, what would you like from me? What can I give you right now? Or what can the community give you? What can we give you? How can we start taking some action rather than leaving you in that role of just victim and arguing with reality, which hurts so bad. I love this next one. Don't believe everything you think. Yep, that's about not attachment or just investigating your thoughts and checking and seeing if they're actually true. Okay, this big quote comes from her book, I Need Your Love, Is That True? How do you react when you think that you need other people's love or their approval or anything like that? Do you become a slave for their approval? Do you live an inauthentic life because you can't bear the thought that they might disapprove of you? Do you try to figure out how they would like you to be, and then you try to become that, like a chameleon? In fact, you never really get their love. You turn into someone that you aren't. And then when they say, I love you, you can't even believe it because they're loving a facade. They're loving someone who doesn't even exist, the person you're pretending to be. It's difficult to seek other people's love. It's deadly. In seeking it, you lose what is genuine. This is the prison we create for ourselves as we seek what we already have. This is a big part of the reason why I push honesty or encourage honesty in all of you and authenticity and just being yourself. And when I say being yourself, aiming to be a little bit better every single day, but being your honest, authentic self and giving other people that honest truth and having that integrity to say, this is what I want, rather than using manipulation or games, like she says, trying to figure out how they would like you to be. And then you try to become that, like a chameleon. We have a word for that. Or there's an entire group of people that identify as that, pickup artists. And most people, by the way, try and figure out how someone else wants them to be, and then they try to become that. But pickup artists, their entire thing is, I'm going to figure out what a woman would like me to say and how she would like me to be, and then I'm going to try and become that. And I just have to do a perfect job and please, mistress, please give me validation. Please, mistress, please think I'm good enough. Please, I'll be whatever you want me to be. Please just tell me what you want from me. I'll get on my fucking knees and lick your shoes if I think that it will get me laid. Please. And pickup artists are doing their absolute best. They're using the tools that they have available to them. And that is a sort of effective tool. It will get you some people to say, I love you. or some people to say, sure, I'll sleep with you. But what ends up happening, and I went through this myself, this is why I can speak of this journey. When it happens, you don't believe it because they're loving a facade. I talked about this so much, I call it dropping the mask. You know, in my case, I was trying to be this like alpha male, this like James Bond perfect character. And I would always try and act the way that women, or that I thought women wanted me to be. And I had this fucking mask that I wore all of the time. And I did have some women tell me that they loved me. I had some women stay with me for a year or so of just sex and good times and all of that. But I would look at them when they told me that they liked me or they loved me, and I would just feel this pain, this loneliness of, you don't know me. I've presented a fake caricature to you. I have this mask, and I can't take this mask off because the mask is what you fell in love with. You know, as Byron Katie says, you fell in love with a facade. You don't know me. I've never let you know me. And for some of those women, I did let that mask down a little bit. And what do you think happens? They go, whoa, is everything okay? Like, why are you acting really different? Are you okay, Andy? Is something going on? Because I was all of a sudden acting like a different person. And so I've been through this. I've felt like I need sex or I need love. And I've done everything I could to get that approval. Instead of focusing on myself, which is something that a couple of these other Stoic guys said as well, focus on yourself. Figure out who you are and who you want to be. And that can be a process. You don't have to just go away over a weekend and figure out who the fuck you are. That's what life is for. Life is this beautiful testing ground and this sandpit where we can all figure out who we are and change it and tweak it and evolve over time and all of that. But be you and then aim to be a slightly better version of you every single day. And through that process, other people will be magnetized to you. And go out and share your authentic self with them. Tell them what you want and who you are and what you're looking for, rather than what you think they want you to say. It's why I say screen, and this came from Good Looking Loser, where his whole philosophy was be yourself and then find the people that like that. Screen for the people that like that. Don't worry about the people that don't like that. Don't worry about the people that don't like you. Aim for that self-improvement, so you're improving over time, and find the people that want what you're looking for and want to be with who you are, and work on that every single day. We'll finish up with one or two more quotes. Placing the blame or judgment on someone else leaves you powerless to change your experience. Taking responsibility for your beliefs and judgments gives you the power to change them. That's a very Stoic philosophy. And this one is a very Stoic philosophy. Peace doesn't require two people. It requires only one. It has to be you. The problem begins and ends there. She has another quote, it only takes one person to end a war. Another way of saying that is it takes two to tango. You can only have a war if both parties consent to it. And so if you want to be happy rather than in drama or arguments or pain or suffering or whatever else might be going on in your life with someone else, if you just stop, if you just make the decision to say, I don't want to involve myself in this anymore, it's done. And the other person can kick and scream and try every manipulative tactic that they might have, and they can try everything they can to get you to re-engage. But if you're just like, I'm sorry, I'm done. I love you, but no thank you. I'm just not involved in this. No hate on you, but I don't want to do this anymore. If you just peacefully move away from that, it's fucking over. And I'll finish up with one final quote. When you argue with reality, you lose. But only 100% of the time. I love that from cheeky old grandmother. God bless Byron Katie. God bless Seneca. God bless Marcus Aurelius. And who else did I miss out? Epictetus. Love those boys. Love that grandmother. If you would like more help with any of this, like I said, I would honestly just grab my video course. It's called Play to Win, How I Built a Winner's Mindset. You can pay or donate whatever amount of money you would like to for this. Shout out a couple of people who paid $50. I really appreciate that. That's genuinely lovely of you. But if you only want to pay $1, that's beautiful. Grab the video course. I talk so much more about Stoicism. If you would like even more help with that, or more help than that, I have $200 coaching calls. You can sit down with me. We'll go over anything you might be working through. We can talk about Stoicism. We can talk about your goals. We can talk about having sexual intercourse or making money or building a relationship or whatever it is that you might be interested in, BDSM and kink, any of that stuff. We also have a hardcore coaching program. We would love to have you as part of that. And I will roll the outro so you can watch that and enjoy that. As always, ladies and gentlemen, go out there and crush those goals and Be a stoic motherfucker or a fatherfucker while you do it. Whatever your goals might be, whether that's money, relationships, sex and dating, fitness, health, friendships, whatever, we are here to help you make those beautiful goals come to life. Ed did it. Taylor did it. Harry did it. None of them are special. If you're listening to this, you know you're capable of more than you're currently giving. You already want something more than what everybody else around you seems to be content with. You want to achieve more, be more, give more to the world. You know it, and I know it. You're destined for something beautiful. Click the link to the coaching in the description below, and let us help you get there. Happiness starts today.